controlling your partner from the back. It's the superlative position in jiu-jitsu. I would argue in a one-on-one fight, it's the superlative position period. So it's the spot where we have maybe not the best, but really great access to our partner's neck, and they can't really attack us back with much. They can't really hit us very hard. It's optimal, okay? So some things you need to know so that you can maintain proper control in this position. One is that I want a really good chest to back connection. So like I want my sternum to their spine as often as possible. Okay, if I start losing this connection, then nothing else matters. I'm not attacking my opponent. I'm just trying to reconnect my chest to their back. It's sliding off. I'm finding a way to get it back. Okay. The next thing is I want my hips above their hips. Okay, you'll see this very often, but a partner will put you on your back and they'll try to walk up and then they'll try to get their back to the ground. Their hips have come higher and they have a lot more mobility to try to slide themselves to the ground. Their head is going higher relative to your head and becoming harder for you to choke it. So having your hips above your opponent's hips is really important. The next thing is that your head and your choking arm are on opposite sides of their head. Okay? A lot of the good escapes, they're going to take your arm and they're going to put it over on the same side. So now my choking arm and my head are on the same side. There is no way that I can choke them with a back strangle. And they're going to be able to start trying to work their shoulders to the mat. Okay? So those are 3 points of control that are very important for maintaining back. Okay? Chest to back connection, hips above hips, so hip dominance, and head and choking arm on opposite sides of your opponent's head. Okay? The next thing is your hooks and your arms. Okay? Seatbelt is your traditional control. There are a lot of times where we'll go to a double underhook, okay, because it is also a very good control. You just can't choke. Okay, so we'll talk about that later when someone stands up and depending on where their hip position is. Sometimes we have to switch to double unders. But the truth is we can switch to double unders whenever we want. If I feel like I'm losing control, sometimes I'll just go there and try to grab the hands from there. So there's nothing wrong with double unders other than you can't get the choke. If you're using the seatbelt, okay, you have the threat of the choke, but it's not as strong a control overall. You've got to make sure to use it deep. Okay, when your seatbelt gets shallow, your elbows aren't helping control your opponent's torso, and it makes it easy for them to turn. So go ahead, try to turn. Turn's no problem. Okay, but if my elbows, bottom elbow to his ribs, top elbow to his shoulder. All right, now try to turn very hard. All right, we're on our side here. Get your shoulder to the mat, impossible. I take my elbow off, get your shoulder to the mat, very easy. Okay, so when you're using your hooks, be cognizant of where your elbows are. They block somebody's shoulder from moving the way that they might want it to. Okay, the next thing is your hooks. Okay, classic hooks are 2 movements. Squeezing the knees, back heeling. Okay, this alone is actually pretty hard to clear. Okay, but when we're moving and stuff's going on, sometimes it's not enough. From here, you don't just have the option to use classic hooks. You can always use different variations. I like to push off the hip and throw one hook across the hips like this. Okay, this is my favorite. You can also go to a body triangle. Okay, body triangle is super, super strong, and it can be inside or outside. Outside is stronger. If somebody does start to wrap a leg over your leg, right, you can push on their head and they won't be able to extend and open up. So go try to finish that. You won't have any power. Same thing goes for crossed feet. If I cross my feet and he tries to get hipster on me, I'm just going to push the back of his head. Okay? And it shouldn't work. So we can cross our ankles if we want, and we can certainly use the body triangle if we want. Okay? You can also often throw one hook behind somebody's hip, right? If you feel like they're slipping out too easily, sometimes putting a hook behind their hip and sending their hips in this direction makes it a little bit harder for them to turn their hips and their back to the floor. Okay? If I'm being honest, I think having a hook across somebody's hips, whether it's a body triangle or just a hook on the hip like this, I think this is stronger than having your feet in the middle, because this is always possible to counter by getting a leg in the middle. So go ahead, chamber kick, right? That's always there, it's a possibility. When I put my foot across the hips, that's tremendously difficult, okay? And they no longer can like quickly take a hook away while you're working for chokes. So I think a really key point when you want to maintain control of somebody is to get one hook laterally across the front of their hip, whether you're locking it or not. So just to recap, okay? Chest to back connection, hips above hips, okay? And head and choking arm on opposite sides with that head always involved, okay? For your hooks, you could be pinching your knees and curling your hips back or your heels back, or we could be picking a side and trying to get a leg across and using a bunch of different variations from there, okay? With regard to the underhooks, you can use them for control whenever you want. You just won't be able to choke. And if we're using a seatbelt, we want to get our elbows deep so that our elbows control the front of his body, one on the ribs, and the key one on that shoulder right there, so that he can't turn that shoulder at will. And this is how you're going to maintain control of somebody from back.